Welcome to the Man Cave Podcast with Dan Casper.
It is time for our Outdoor Tidbits with Mr. Jake Bolks, Conservation Warden for the great state of Wisconsin. We got Memorial Day weekend coming up here, so I'm sure a lot of you listening right now will be spending some time in the outdoors. Jake, good morning. How you doing, bud?
Morning. Another beautiful Thursday here, so doing pretty good.
All right. Oh, got to turn you up there, intern.
Jake, how much damage? I don't know what kind of contact you had with the park rangers and like that, but what kind of damage do we have in any of the national parks or state parks or county parks around here that could cause some disruptions for camping or something like that over the Memorial Day weekend? Anything to worry about?
So overall, not a ton. You know, there's plenty of trees down in different areas. Merrick State Park, which is on the Mississippi River, kind of out of our area, but, you know, this side of the state, They had one of those tornadoes go through there, and no one got hurt or anything like that, but there were a lot of trees down. A lot of campers were stuck in there for a while, so everyone was okay there. Everything's still open and whatnot with that. I'd say the biggest result of the storm is in Clark County. So Clark County, they actually closed their ATV, UTV trails and their off-highway motorcycle if you ride dirt bikes. So if you were planning on going down to like the Hatfields or out to Clark County to do some ATV riding this weekend, you're really going to have to check tomorrow to see if they open up the trails. As of right now, all Clark County trails are closed, so it just means you can't be on there no matter what. Now, you might not be able to get on there depending on all the trees, so that might be an obvious thing, but the trails are closed, and, you know, a ticket's like $300 for operating on a closed trail system.
Oh, boy, that's not good. And as far as passes, have we got any deals on passes to get into the parks this week? Or when? Well, I know we got free fishing coming up in a few days or a few weeks, but... Yeah, so not this weekend, not Memorial Day weekend, but the weekend after is free fishing weekend, which is usually like free access to the state parks, maybe even some free ATV reg type stuff for the weekend. I kind of been calling it like free DNR weekend, where you usually don't have to pay for the licenses or access to stuff on that weekend now, but you still do have to follow all the regulations and size limits and stuff like that. But good. As far as this weekend, it's kind of I guess your typical weekend minus it being a holiday weekend.
Mm-hmm. Jake, let's get to some questions here. Not sure who this is from, but a question for the game warden. They said, I would like to fish some of the smaller rivers in the area from the shore. Is it legal for me to access them from bridge crossings if they are surrounded by private land? And is there any easement along the riverbank? Is it legal if I stay in the water? I feel like, you know, we kind of touched a little bit on the staying in the water part, but it's a good reminder, I think, too, for Memorial Day weekend coming up here.
Yeah, there's a few parts to that question. So, you know, the overall big takeaway is that if you legally get in the water at some sort of legal public access, then you can go wherever you want in the state. So if you enter, say, Otter Creek, and then you decide to walk all the way up it as far as you want, that's fine. Your feet just have to stay wet. So once you're in the water, you're good. Whether you're floating on a boat or your feet are walking along it, you can do that. But you can't get out of the water at any point. So, like, if you're walking up a trout stream or a small creek and there's a tree blocking it and the only way to keep going is to get out, technically you're not allowed to get your feet out of the water because now you're going onto someone's private property. So there's no, like, stream bank easement or anything like that. It's, like, statewide. It's just you're either in the water or you're not. As far as, like, accessing spots, there are some public access points where I encourage everyone to go in. As far as, like, the question about, you know, can I just go to a bridge crossing and go in the water? You know, typically different properties or, like, owners of the properties allow it, but the most simplest way to describe it is every piece of land, even if it's, you know, quote-unquote public, is owned by someone. So if that bridge crossing is on state land, then yes, you can do it 100% because the state allows people on their property to recreate and stuff like that. So you could go to that bridge and go down there. Now, like if you're just on a random county highway or a town road, you'd have to check in with that local jurisdiction, so like the township or the county or the city, and find out if you're okay to access their property to access the water. Just because they own it and it's their rules, there's typically some sort of like easements or allowance or this or that, but because I don't work for those agencies or departments, I can't really speak on it. As far as the state, yeah, you can do it if it's state land.
So Jake, to kind of, I don't know if you've seen these. I'm sure you have. Like I've seen them on Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram, or whatever. But there'll be these people that are fishing in their boats. They're in their boats on a lake and casting towards a dock. And then you see an owner of that house saying, "You can't do that.
Yeah.
Stop fishing towards there." I mean, does that owner have a legal right to say you can't fish towards my dock, or are they just, are they in the wrong at that point?
Yeah, so I want to clarify that everything we always talk about is Wisconsin. So anytime you watch videos online, you never know if it's Wisconsin, Minnesota, Florida, somewhere in Europe. You just never know. So, but in Wisconsin, water is the public right away. You're allowed to go everywhere. You're allowed to fish wherever. And you're allowed to go, into someone's, right next to their dock and right next to their shore. Now, are there some respect things and some sportsman things where maybe you shouldn't get right up in someone's face, especially if they're on the dock or something like that? But yeah, you could cast towards their dock and you can fish under their dock as long as you're in the water. Now, if you get your lure stuck on their dock or you get it stuck in the canvas on their boat lift and you rip it, now you might be liable, for some damage to their private property. But as long as you're in the water, staying in the water, fishing towards the water, you're good to go.
All right, good to note there. Hey, Jay. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, and it's important to note too, like, if you're doing everything legal in the boat and you're in the right, and a landowner comes up and starts yelling at you to leave and whatnot, it could turn into a harassment charge, fishing harassment, hunting harassment, stuff like that. So, if someone's being belligerent, it's always okay to try to have a civil conversation, but if, it's a repetitive thing where every time you go past this guy's dock, he's yelling at you or this or that, and you're starting to get scared or nervous, or it's affecting how you can fish and you're not instigating anything, then I would encourage you to call the DNR and we can investigate it, because people shouldn't be acting that way either.
Mm-hmm. Good point. Good point there. We'll get back to fishing and boat safety stuff with Memorial Day coming up here in a second. But obviously, a big one, and the timing was perfect because I think it was announced yesterday, and Bob's already got the printout and he used the elk tags. Got the numbers,
yeah.
Right, Jake? Got the numbers finally out there. So
yeah.
Bob, you want to say what the numbers are for everybody again, quick, since you got it right there?
Well, the DNR approved an 8-bull harvest quota for Clam Lake and a 4-bull harvest for the inaugural season in the Black River elk zone. But per treaty rights, the Ojibwe tribes may declare up to half of the harvest quota within the ceded territory, which includes the Clam Lake elk zone. So that will have an effect on how many elk non-Native Americans of the Ojibwe can get.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, typically, what I read is typically it's, they split it, half of it up there, so it ends up being 4 for Wisconsin state residents up there and 4 for the Black River herd this year. So likely there'll be 8 for the state residents that you're going to be able to, put in for and try to win one.
One thing we also talked about, if you do get your name drawn, you only pay $49 for an elk license.
Right,
Man,
yeah.
oh man, that's a steal of a deal. That's a deal of the century.
It is a once in a lifetime hunt. There's no doubt about it. Not only drawing the tag, but price wise, you don't need to buy $500 sleeping base to go sleep on a mountainside and pay a $600 fee to get a tag and yada yada. You're right. $500 or $49, and you probably are sleeping in your house and you're going elk hunting the next morning. Hey, pretty crazy.
One thing that crossed my mind just now as you're talking, if I get a tag and I can go elk hunting and say I declare for the Black River area.
Yep.
And can I take Casper along as kind of my dog to walk through the woods and chase the elk up as long as he's not carrying a gun?
Like driving?
Or do I have to go all by myself?
Well, you're gonna be bumping on the lines of harassing. Anytime you use anything for harassing or this or that. I mean, if
you're
talking about
harassing
doing
me now.
No, but I mean,
Do
just
it
have
right.
them walk through the woods.
Or just like a buddy to go with.
Yeah.
No, I see what. So you could definitely have people that you can hunt with. Like at any point, you can always have someone that comes with you to just hunt with you, like sit with you, be a part of the experience. However that may be. I think you're kind of alluding to like a deer drive. Can you push people through? Can you push through to push deer? And again, like when you look at the law and this and that, based off like whether your intent is to like harass an animal to get them in an area where someone else can shoot them.
I don't want to harass them. I just want to shoot them.
Right. Well, it all depends on kind of how many hunters there are, and in this case, there's probably only one, and what the goal is and how it's done and stuff like that. There's a lot to it. Typically, if you're going to be elk hunting like this, you're probably not going to be doing elk drives to pushing out towards someone. You'll probably be hunting them on your own. But you could definitely bring them with to make them carry your bags and bring your food and bring your water and everything.
That's still harassment.
You could use them as like your mule.
Hey, well, he's good for that. Hey, Jake, have you seen this Black River or the Clam Lake herds?
Have I seen them?
Yeah.
Yeah, I've not very often, not a ton, but I do know like if you live down there or like the wardens down there, they see them all the time. They stay to a pretty, they stay to a pretty specific area, and it's pretty common. If you want to go find one, you can probably find it because they stay in, like I said, they kind of stay in their same area. I just haven't spent a lot of time down there.
Jake, with Memorial Day coming up, obviously it's a big weekend, not only for the trails, as you kind of mentioned a little bit earlier, but weather-wise too. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of people on the boats or in the boats on the water, and that. I guess maybe just kind of some general safety tips or just reminders for everybody heading out there this weekend.
Yeah, so we'll hit with the ATVs, UTVs again, just as we mentioned already. If you're going trail riding, if you're 18 or under, under 18, you have to have your helmet on. What we as wardens have really been hitting on in the last few years is like safety-related items, because unfortunately we're seeing more and more deaths and accidents with just the more and more machines. So you got to have your seatbelts on, you got to have your helmets on, you got to have your lights on when you're driving, even if it's during the middle of the day. So stuff like that, and then just overall, just make sure you sit down, either read the regs. I definitely encourage you to read the regs, but take a look at your machine and just make sure everything works. Like we have to do safety checks and annual checks on our machines to make sure everything's good, and I encourage everyone to do that versus just like pulling it out of the garage, throwing it on the trailer, and hoping everything works when you get there. Make sure the lights work. Make sure the registration's actually up to date. Your helmet, your seatbelts work, your exhaust has a spark arrestor in it isn't too loud. So just make sure your equipment is good to go, as well as know where you're going. The amount of times we see people pulled over on the side of the trail, we'll go and check on them, and they're like, we're from over here, we're from Rhinelander, and we don't know, we're trying to get over here, and it's like, oh, you've been going the wrong way for half an hour, So if you're going riding somewhere, and especially in an area you don't know, make sure to plan it out, just like a hunt or something like that. Make sure to plan out where you're going. Same for boating. The safety thing. So make sure you got your life jackets, your PFDs. That's a big one. Make sure they actually fit you. It seems like more and more we check people where, they need 3 life jackets, and 2 of the 3 for the adults are kid-sized life jackets. That's not going to save you in an emergency situation. It's technically not legal. And do the same thing. Make sure your boat starts. Make sure that you're not taking on water. Make sure it's registered, life jackets, your batteries are, terminals are covered and different stuff like that. So just read through the regs. It always is a good refresher. And I think we're going to have some beautiful weather this weekend for ATV and for boating, for fishing, for picnicking, whatever you're going to be doing this weekend. It's probably going to be a pretty fun weekend.
Any restrictions with all the rain and things we've had recently, any restrictions on campfires or anything? Obviously be careful, but I mean, sometimes earlier we didn't allow them.
Yeah, nope. I was talking to a forester at the beginning of the week, and they weren't manning the stations anymore. They were pretty, as he said it, he's like, got out of my green pants. He's wearing jeans to work again. You know, it basically means like they're not on call. They're, you know, the fire season's kind of slowing down. It's greening up. We've got a lot of water. So, you know, you definitely want to check, you know, river systems if you're going out fishing. I haven't looked at what the Chippewa is doing yet, if it's going to rise a lot here with all this rain recently or not, or the Eau Claire because of all the rain in Clark and stuff. So, you know, I think we're good on fires for the most part, but like you said, always be careful with them. Always, you know, don't leave an unattended fire. And then if you're ever on state land, it's really important. If you're ever on state land, you're only allowed to have fires in designated fire pits, basically. So that's usually at state parks, at a campsite.
And don't
usually
bring your
like on state natural area. Yeah, you can't just like start a fire in the middle of the woods because you want to.
And don't bring your own firewood. Buy it locally.
Yeah, buy locally for sure. If you're on some private land, you know, take the dead down stuff already there. If you're going camping somewhere or you're going to public land, just buy the stuff from the local landowners or the local Quick Trip or wherever. It might be a little bit more expensive, but it definitely helps reduce the risk of passing those invasive species across the state.
Absolutely. Jake, appreciate the time, man. Be safe this weekend and enjoy the time if you're able to, but we appreciate you.
You guys doing anything fun?
You doing anything there, intern?
Yeah, I'll be planting flowers and doing some outdoor things, and if it does get warm enough, I don't know, maybe take a pontoon ride, but not much other than that.
I think I'm going to do a little fishing.
There you
Good
go.
idea.
Yep,
I got my neighbor to do that for me.
Yeah, you do. So.
And I'll tell you, he brought me some good bluegills, and he filleted them, and they're out of this world.
Nice.
Fresh fish. He said there's a lot of them out there. I said there should be. Nobody caught them ice fishing.
Right. One of the best ways to do it, just have fillets show up to your doorstep, huh?
No kidding.
That's exactly right.
Man, so, Jake, we appreciate it, buddy. You enjoy the week, and we'll catch up with you next week, okay, bud?
Yeah, thanks, guys. Have a great one.
You too. There you go. Jake Bolks, our conservation warden buddy.